I was traversing the treacherous seas of Instagram Reels this morning when I was bored and had nothing else to do, as one does, and I came across a video that was attempting to debunk the theory of evolution from a young Earth creationist's perspective. And I was going to just leave this video alone like I do with the majority of stuff like this that I come across, because it's just really the same misinformation spewed over and over again, and there's really only so many times you can say the same things over and over again. But then I looked in the reply section and I saw this person saying that everything or almost everything that the guy in the video was saying was incorrect. And then someone responded saying, well, can you make a video disproving it? And I was like, don't worry, bro, I got you. I can do exactly that. Now we're here and let's take a look. So the video starts out with this woman coming on screen and being all like, evolution is scientifically supportable. If you're a Christian and you deny it, then you're denying science, all that stuff. Which, yeah, I agree with her mostly. I don't exactly like the tone she's coming at it with, but that's not really the point. So if you couldn't guess, this video that I'm about to debunk is a response to that woman's statement. Let's take a look.
Really, let's put that claim to the test. First off, evolution in the sense that things change is evident. No rational person disputes that. Therefore, rational Christians believe it. We can observe change, but evolution in the sense that life came from non-life and then that life began to randomly generate new genetic information and over time it eventually produced humans is something entirely different and something that quite honestly doesn't hold up against science. In other words, evolution in the sense of molecules to man is not scientifically plausible and therefore should not be viewed as scientific fact. Quite honestly, it is in great opposition to science, that is, observational science, the kind of science we can test and repeat and use our five senses to understand. Science demonstrates that over time, living organisms lose genetic information. They don't gain it. That same science demonstrates that life doesn't arise from non-life.
So, right off the bat, two things. One, this video has two major statements that it's trying to argue for. One, that life cannot come from non-life, and two, that life cannot gain new genetic information, and therefore there is no way for, as they say, molecule to man evolution to happen. We'll get to that second one in a hot minute, but I first want to say that I'm not really going to be touching on the abiogenesis portion of this video, because one, it's not really talked about for that much time in the original video, and two, I'm not very learned on abiogenesis, because believe it or not, the abiogenesis is a separate field from evolution. Yes, they are somewhat interconnected, because one deals with the beginning of life, the other deals with how life has changed over time, but an understanding of abiogenesis is not required to have an understanding of evolution. So saying that evolution can't be a thing because abiogenesis can't be a thing is technically incorrect. Also, I am personally a Christian. I do believe that God is the one true creator and that he created life, and I think it's just as likely that he could have created life through some complicated chemical process using non-life, just as likely as he could have just created life, you know. Second thing I'd like to say is this video shows a common young Earth creationist tendency to divide evolution into two categories, micro and macroevolution, with microevolution being minor changes and macroevolution being like speciation and like, as they say, molecule to man, which their argument is microevolution exists, but macroevolution is impossible, which is not true if you think about it, because really what they call macroevolution is just microevolution happening over and over again, and then speciation occurring from that. Point being, the differentiation is stupid and not scientifically supportable whatsoever. And I lied. I actually have three things to point out. The third one being his statements that evolution is not provable by observable science. This statement shows a fundamental misunderstanding of what observable science means. Observable science, as he calls it, doesn't really involve the five senses necessarily at all. It just involves making sure there are multiple independent lines of evidence, repeatability, and testable predictions, all of which macroevolution, as they call it, meets. For example, if you were to make the prediction that evolution is true and has been happening for ever since life began and is happening and will continue happening, you would have to make the prediction that as you go deeper and deeper through rock layers, deeper and deeper in time, you would find that organisms would start to get less complex as you got farther away from the present, which is in fact exactly how organisms are ordered as you go deeper and deeper through rock layers. So that is a testable prediction that was tested and proven true. And there are multiple other examples of predictions like this. Like you can assume that you could find, if evolution is true, you could find some sort of species that has features of two different main groups of organisms because it is a transitional species between those two organisms. And the existence of creatures like Tiktaalik and Archaeopteryx are proof for this testable prediction. And there are multiple different independent lines of evidence for evolution in the fields of paleontology, biology, microbiology, biochemistry, embryology, geology, biogeography. So many different fields of science, basically anything relating to fossils or biology have independent lines of evidence for evolution. So to say that evolution is not supportable by observable science is blatantly incorrect and shows a basic fundamental misunderstanding of what that actually means.
Along, if you would. Fact 1. There is no known observable process by which new genetic information can be added to an organism's genetic code. None. That pretty much refutes evolution right away because there's no way to go from a fish to an amphibian without adding new information, right? If living organisms cannot produce new genetic information, how can anything gradually change into something of higher intelligence or form or complexity? That is, how can anything evolve from an amoeba to a man without adding new genetic information? The answer, of course, is that it can't. Plain and simple. Now,
I moved to here because I got tired of holding my phone up while recording. Anyways, he's basically saying that there's no way for an organism to gain more genetic information, which is not true in like two different ways. Number one, gene duplication exists. So there is literally more genetic information because there is literally more DNA because it has been duplicated. And it is possible for the duplicate to go on and mutate and cause changes while the original can still stay the same. 2. Mutations happen, where a section of the genetic sequence is either changed, removed, or added, which causes a mutation in the organism that is either positive, which means it helps their survival in their environment, negative, which means it detracts from their ability to survive in their environment, or neutral, which means it doesn't hurt or help them at all, which is what the majority of mutations are. Now, positive mutations are the ones that are going to be selected by natural selection because they're the ones that assist the organism's survival and thus make it more likely to reproduce and pass on the mutation to their offspring, and then eventually that mutation usually gets passed on to the majority of the population after many generations. However, there is a chance that if a change in the environment or something external happens, that a previously neutral or even negative mutation can be turned into a positive and then selected instead. And regardless, even if it was true that organisms cannot gain new genetic information, then evolution still wouldn't be impossible. Now, it wouldn't reach the same extent that it has on this planet, but it could still happen to an extent because of the fact that even with the most basic genomes, there's still so much variation that could happen.
some have speculated and they have imagined all kinds of things, and they brought in artists to produce creative renderings based on guesses, and they have been successful in telling a very convincing story that humans evolved from ape-like creatures. But those are just drawings, people. They're just stories.
Yes, the study of life on Earth does involve some speculation, but it is never unfounded speculation. It is never speculation that doesn't have some sort of evidence behind it or some kind of modern day counterpart that we can't point to and say, hey, since this animal is similar to this animal, it's not unreasonable to assume that this animal in the past behaved similar to this animal in the present. With the exception of a few theories and suggestions that have been disproven and are no longer supported by the scientific community, the speculations within the field of evolution and paleontology have always been, and hopefully will always continue to be, founded on evidence. That's pretty much all I need to touch on in relation to the video itself. The remainder of the video is just spent restating all of his main points and explaining that his incorrect interpretation of the creation story is a better explanation for the history of life than evolution is. I've gone over in previous videos how the creation story is true, just not exactly in the way many people think it is. That's a whole nother thing that I'll probably go over in a separate video if I want to. The last main thing I want to touch on in this video is that in the replies of that video, there are a lot of replies saying stuff like the theory of evolution. It's not the law of evolution, it's just a theory, right? Which, yes, is true. It is the scientific theory of evolution. But theory in science is a different thing than theory in how we use it in everyday conversation. When something is a theory in science, it is something that has been supported by multiple different individual fields of evidence, repeatability, and testable predictions, which we already established evolution meets that criteria. The reason it's not a law is because a law is something that is mathematically supportable. So to say that the theory of evolution is not supportable because it's just a theory shows a fundamental misunderstanding of scientific terminology, which is a very, very common thing in the young earth creationist circle. Anyways, that's all I really have to say. Jesus loves y'all. God bless. Also, I just realized during editing that I accidentally made a full-length video instead of a short. So, I mean, it's messy, and it's going to be vertical the entire time, but, I mean, you're welcome. Also, sorry about the audio. I promise if I keep doing this, then I'll eventually get an actual microphone. Eventually.